So when I'll go a step further. So my Twitter handle, my gamer tag is made in India. There's like an X in between there, but it's essentially made in India. And when I was trying to be a professional, I was like, okay, I'm not that great. I'm coming from the outside into this circle of a community. How do I kind of stand out? And I remember one day when I was showering, I was like, okay,
It's where
whenever
all
I,
great thoughts are born,
yeah.
right? In the shower.
I mean, look, it was 2020, so it was one of the
Yeah.
rare showers. No, but it was, I was taking a shower and I was thinking of, I believe it was France versus Italy. It might have been the '06 World Cup, somewhere in that year, somewhere in that 2 year range. And I
Mhm.
remember, anytime a soccer player scores a goal, one of the first things they do if they don't take off their shirt is they go ahead and grab their jersey and kiss their country's flag. And I was like, man, I've been in the United States for about 20 years now. I've never really represented my country in any real way, not necessarily haven't really represented my religion or anything like that. It would be cool if that's the angle that I went. It's like, hey, here's an Indian guy trying to be a professional, and that's the angle. And thankfully, the gamer tag made in India was available on Xbox and also on Twitter, with, again, a couple of X's in the middle. So that's where that journey started. And then the podcast that I mentioned earlier, it was shout out to Dave. 2K Zone was a podcast. It was a small community, maybe 10, 15 folks would listen to it. And we would just cover the league for free. We didn't get any incentives out of it. We just liked the league. We wanted to give our insights on it. Before I got a chance to get on that podcast, since it was COVID, the whole league was remote, right? So we weren't able to compete in person or anything like that. So I was like, okay, again, how do I stand out? What's missing where I can make my mark? And good old Google Sheets helped me out. So I pretty much created a document where I compared, hey, does being the home team impact your internet and give you better stats to play? So just something different, kind of coming up with like, oh, here's the analytics guy. That was a nickname that I eventually got. So that's how I put out that spreadsheet. People loved it. Dave hit me up and said, hey, look, I've got a small podcast. Do you want to come on? And so that's when I went on. And then from there, it was just, other opportunities just came and came and came. And then eventually, like I said, Frank saw me on the podcast and he had me join his podcast, BFW Live. And then from there, the executive producer of the NBA 2K League reached out and said, hey, we want to give you this shot. I did one show. And then that was kind of like my interview. That's honestly how I treated everything. It was just, hey, somebody's watching.
Mhm.
Everything's an interview. I don't have Twitter fingers. I don't say anything crazy. But that's kind of like the origin story of where my gamer tag and my Twitter handle came from. It sounds cringy when I'm 33 years old and I'm telling someone my Twitter handle is, but that's the reason behind that, and the story of how I got to how I got my first start, I guess, in the
Mhm.
league itself.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you used your identity
Yeah,
to stand out. I see no issue with that. I mean, our identities as minorities and minority religion, ethnicity, whatever it is, it's used to other us in a lot of ways in
yeah,
America. So why not use it to our advantage? And I think about my podcast. I mean, honestly, the reason I was able to reach out to you, and we have that common connection of being Muslim, and that's
yeah,
that's enough to at least have that kind of like initial connection, like okay, like we can maybe see eye to eye on a couple things, and then
yeah,
of course from there, and I've been able to get other guests and stuff like that just
yeah,
because they're also Muslim, they're also Arab, whatever it is. So
yeah.
no issue with
It's
that.
funny you
Yeah.
mentioned that because I think when you had first reached out, I checked out your podcast. It didn't matter to me. I was going to do it anyway. I was just curious of what guests you had, just so I get a flow of things. And I saw that you had interviewed Sabrina Merchant. Sabrina and I went to a camp back in 2008 as kids, so like
Oh wow. Okay.
20 plus years ago. If I do my math right, somewhere in there. That's
Close,
definitely not
close.
20 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. But we went to a camp a while back, and the reason I bring her up is because less than a month ago, or about a month ago, her and I actually commentated a basketball tournament in Dallas, Texas, for the first time. So it was actually
Oh
my
wow.
first time commentating a real life sport. I've always done esports, right? FIFA, Madden, EAFC, 2K, whatever, Rocket League. I've always done esports. I've never done in person real life sports. So that was the first time. That was the first weekend I did it. And Sabrina and I got to call the men's finals. And it was great to cast that with her. She's brilliant. She's talented. She's great at what she does. So when I saw her, I was like, oh, what a small world,
I mean, I found her the same way. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure that was part of Shabaz's vision when he created the group, and we're referring
Exactly.
to a Muslims in Sports Media Slack group, which is
Yeah.
unfortunately not active anymore. It's
Yeah.
been a while,
I know
but
he feels bad. I saw him in LA
yeah,
like 3, 4 months ago. I know he feels bad, but Shooker, he's doing great things and he's busy with that.
yeah, he's working for Undefeated, right?
He
LeBron's
actually
production company.
left undefeated and now he's working with Nike. So the man just keeps
Oh,
on leveling up.
well, there you go. But yeah, I mean, he built the community, invited a bunch of people, and
Yeah.
I've been able to connect with you and Sabrina and Arda Okal, who works for ESPN, and some other folks as well through it. So
Awesome.
it's been a great resource. And again, it's a common thread. It's a common
Yeah.
identity that we share. And then I always want to hear from folks like me in the sports world.